So without a shadow of a doubt, the number one issue or mistake that happens when duplicating keys is not clamping the key correctly. And that's why in the previous chapters I've spent so much time kind of covering and going over that, is because if you don't get that key clamped correctly, it's going to lead you to all sorts of problems. As a matter of fact, I would make the case that it's just about impossible to properly cut a key that works, to duplicate a key that works, and not have it clamped correctly. So what I want to do is I'm going to get the key machine over here, put the camera on top of it, and we're going to kind of go through a few of the most common issues that you're going to run into with clamping the key correctly. Now, this kind of goes without saying, but I really want to make sure that when you're getting ready to duplicate a key, you don't want to first put in the blank key and then put in the key that you want to duplicate. And the reason I say that is a lot of times you can clamp the blank key down really easy because there's the most amount of material for the clamp to actually clamp down on. So you always want to start with the key that you want to duplicate. So I'm going to go ahead and move this over here a little bit, and I want to talk about it now. But sometimes some of this can seem fairly simple. However, at the same time, sometimes the most simple things are the hardest to always do. So when you go to clamp a key, you really want to look and see exactly where the most amount of material is missing to make sure that you can still have a good clamp on it. And you always want to make sure you kind of center it in the jig the best you can. So now this is a shoulder stop key, right? This is that HD 109 motorcycle key that I've went over in other videos. And so essentially is what's going to happen here. If you go to clamp it down and you can see there's two different lines here that you can tip stop it with if it was a tip stop. But this is a shoulder stop, so you're going to want to bring it somewhere in here. Now you do not want to clamp it like this. Okay, let me hold this up here a little so you can see. And now technically, could you cut a key like this? Yes, it is possible. But the reason you don't want to is because you have part of the key that's cut, and even a really deep cut, actually off of the vise here. So that's going to apply extra pressure onto the key, especially when you're duplicating it, and you're gonna see that the key will easily be able to, it'll start sliding out like this due to pressure. And that only needs to happen a little bit on the key that you're cutting over here for it to not work. So you want to make sure that all of the cuts, if possible, are always over the key like this. Now, another point I want to bring up about this, and we've already went over this exact key earlier, is that sometimes when you get it put into cut, even with using the shaving technique, if your cutter is extra dull, you can find yourself where you're having a very difficult time clamping it down here, and it's going to start flying. Now, in this case, you're either going to want to use adapters that we're going to go over a little bit later, or you need to find a different way to cut it. And typically, on a double-sided key like this, you're going to want to move it over to jaw 3 or C. And when you do that, okay, you're going to be able to start to use the grooves in it, and like this. Let me go ahead and clamp this all the way down so you can see. And as long as the cuts on the key are going to clear the jaw, meaning you can never have, like I've already kind of spoke on this, but you want to make sure that if the cuts are lower than the actual jaw, then you can't do it. But otherwise, you can easily put this same B86 key, GM10 cut key, on the C jaw, align it with your tip stop the same way you would, just like this, and cut it. Okay, so you can put it in just like that and do both of the keys and cut this key this way. So if you don't have a lot of jaw material, even though technically it's proper and it's sitting on there and we have the bulk amount of the cuts covering it, all of the keys, we go in and set it down there, you are going to run into situations where that's not going to work on the jaw 1. So those are the two big things when it comes to the keys not being clamped correctly. You don't want to be dealing with them falling out or popping out of the jaw and miscutting them. And at the same time, a lot of times using these same principles, if the key is not sitting straight, you can also start looking at other jaws on here. So those are the few of the things that you want to look out for when you're clamping the key. You want to make sure it's right and make sure to do that little test to make sure you have the key clamped securely.